It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio.
Hello and welcome to RealAg Radio. I am your host, Lindsay Smith, for one more day. Yes, Sean Haney should be back. Sounds like he's back. Back in the driver's seat on Monday. He's back from Agritechnica, and let's see how he does with the old jet lag, hey? All right, well, it is Friday, and that means we do have an issues panel lined up for today. But, of course, before we get to that, we do have our fifth installment of our reports from Agritechnica, and this one is very special. So in our first segment, we're going to hear from Rylan Haney, and I'll let you guess how she's related to Sean. Just kidding. They explain everything. P.S. It's his daughter. Anyway, okay, on today's show, though, on the Issues Panel, I'm going to be joined by Jeff Nielsen. He's a grain farmer from out near Olds, Alberta. And we've got Calvin Hepner, of course, of RealAgriculture, and farmer from southern Manitoba, and me, the hostess. Okay, and Sean might pop in. We're still waiting to find out. But on today's docket, there are so many things that we are going to cover, so we have to start with Bill C-234 and what has happened over the last week. Things have certainly ramped up on the political scale. And we will talk about, we have learned that there are demonstrations planned for next week. So Monday and Tuesday likely. Tuesday is the day that the senators should be back in the Red Chamber. And so here in Ottawa, as well as different places across Canada, if you haven't heard yet, yes, there are demonstrations planned. Here in Ottawa, there will not be tractors or vehicles allowed. It will be an in-person demonstration only. But if you're in the area, Monday or Tuesday, you may find yourself part of that demonstration if you're down on Parliament Hill. So there is that going on. We are going to talk about Lawrence MacAulay and whether or not we're going to see a mandate letter for Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. We're also going to talk about those dollars announced for canola. And you heard me talk about this on yesterday's show, talked about it on Tuesday in the news, but I want to get Calvin and Jeff's thoughts on whether or not this $9 million for the canola cluster, is it really enough? Does it signal something bigger? And of course, that ties into if Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada has to find savings, that 3% that our finance minister said everybody's got to find in their budget. What does that mean? Are we looking at cut services? Are we looking at early retirements? Are we looking at less research? What might that look like? So I'm going to put that to the issues panel. All right. So for this week, and of course, any show, if you've got any feedback, please call that feedback line 1-855-776-6147, or you can zip me an email, lsmith@realagriculture.com, or you can find us across social media, of course, at Real Agriculture. And especially now, if you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, do it, because all the cool Agritechnica stuff is there. All right, without further ado, let's get to a break, and I'll be back with more right after this.
Give your soybeans an obvious advantage with Lalfix Pro Yield Liquid Soybean from Lalwin Plant Care. Its exclusive formulation amplifies nitrogen fixation. That means a greener, higher-yielding soybean crop and enhanced ROI. The single bladder means there's no mixing, and the available collapsible cube simplifies shipping. It's the inoculant with a difference you can see. Contact your Lalman sales representative today.
Peter Johnson at WheatPete, RealAgriculture.com. I'm the host of The Word, and I love doing The Word. I love the questions. I love the challenges. I love having to apply agronomics to all over the globe and areas outside of my normal jurisdiction. Also, I love the feedback the most, where growers challenge me, tell me about their plot results, help me to learn. The Word, absolutely the best part of my day.
There's power, and then there's superpower. Advancing the unstoppable superpower of pre-seed from New Farm. Take control, eliminate weed competition, and start clean in spring. Manage weeds early in canola, cereals, and pulses. Conquer, Goldwing, Thunderhawk, and Blackhawk EVO. Convenient formulations and multiple modes of action. Add more power to glyphosate, more benefits to your burn down. Go to newfarm.ca/burndown.
Welcome back to Real Ag Radio here on Friday, November 17th. I am your host, Lindsay Smith. And imagine, if you will, you've never been to a football game. And then you get the chance to go, and it's the Super Bowl. Yes, that's right. I'm making a sports analogy, and I'm not Sean Haney, so apologies to everyone out there. But there's a reason I do, and actually, I stole it from Sean, and you'll find out why in just a second. So this week, of course, as always, each day we're bringing you a clip from Agritechnica, from our coverage there. So we had Bern Tobin and Jason Strovey there. We had Sean Haney, and we had an intern who went as well. And so today's clip is from Rylan Haney, yes, Sean's daughter. We captured some of her thoughts on what it's like to go to your very first farm show as someone who's supposed to cover it. And it just so happens to be Agritechnica.
Sean Haney here with Real Agriculture, covering Agritechnica 2023 in Hanover, Germany. Our coverage is brought to you by Optimum Gly, a new canola trait technology from Corteva Agriscience. And we've had a lot of fun here this week. We've had 4 people on the ground. We've had Bern Tobin, who many of you know, Jay Strovey, video producer with Real Agriculture since day one, and our new intern. That's right. It is Rylan Haney, my daughter. Rylan, you were thrust into this. Have you had a lot of fun?
Yeah, it's been really, really fun and nice to spend time with you guys. It's been great.
So you were team with Bern. We won't get you to share any secrets or things that happen behind the scenes, but you had a really great time?
Yeah, Bern's great. Bern's awesome. He's been a great help teaching me how to use the camera and everything. Yeah, it's been good.
Okay, so you grew up on a farm, but you're not the most biggest of a farm kid, but you've been around it your whole life. First time at a farm show, and you kind of came to the Super Bowl of all farm shows. What's been some of the things that you've really noticed at the show?
Well, first, I would say there's all the technology, like it's all the tractors, combines, all the machinery is so advanced. One thing I noticed, which I thought was pretty cool, is one of the tractors I saw connects to Apple CarPlay, which I really like in my car, so I thought it was kind of cool. Farmers use it too, not just normal people. And also the people, like agriculture is so big, and it's not just like small town farms. Like there's so many people here. It's so busy, so crazy. So many people invested in their work and in farming. So that's been pretty cool.
Yeah, yesterday was day 3, which was Tuesday. We kind of lose track of days. And you went to go see the Lamborghini tractor at Deutsch, and you worked your way into a locked tractor. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Bern did an interview with one of the guys working there about the Lamborghini tractor, and then after he really must have liked Bern. Bern's like, yeah, you think my camera girl can get up in the tractor? We will unlock it for you, yes. And so they unlocked the tractor, and I got to go up there, and it was super cool. It was a super cool experience, and Lamborghini tractor, that's super cool. And yeah, it was awesome.
You and you found out that Lamborghini actually started as a tractor company.
I didn't know that. More you to learn here at Agritechnica 2023.
Brought to you by Optimum Gly, right?
And Corteva Agriscience.
Great stuff. Okay, so have you the food? Now that's been a bit of a challenge. You have a gluten intolerance, so that's been a bit of a challenge trying to find good food on the ground. Now we've enjoyed the beer and the pretzels and the schnitzel, the burgers, but been a little tougher for you.
Yeah, first day here we found a little restaurant with some hamburgers, so I just took the bun off and ate the patty, but it was doused in a lot of barbecue sauce. Rock hard stomach after that. And day 2, same thing, but yesterday I found a nice fry shop, and I had some good fries, and today we ran into a candy stand and some authentic German candy. Really big. Really big.
And very good.
Very good, very good, very good.
Okay, well, hey, Ron, you've been awesome. We've been really great to have you. I've been really proud dad this entire trip, so really appreciate you doing this. And honestly, you can come back anytime.
Oh, thanks, Dad.
Okay, on behalf of everybody here at Real Agriculture, please check out our coverage, RealAgriculture.com, or of course go to our YouTube channel, Real Agriculture. We got a whole bunch of great features. We're rolling home here. We're leaving today. And we've got 70 pieces of content, 70 videos that our team of 4 here shot while we've been over in Germany. So please check it out. Signing off, Sean Haney with Real Agriculture.
Well, and with that, it sort of ends our daily visit to Germany for this. But don't worry, we have so much more coverage over on our YouTube channel. You can find us there, Real Agriculture, or you can head to RealAgriculture.com. We will be posting all of our coverage of Agritechnica over the next few months. And yes, I say months because quite honestly, the team, I think, came home with something like 70 videos. And so we've prioritized sort of the initial thoughts. So you've heard this week from Nick DeBook, you've heard from Tom Wolfe, Rylan as well, Byrne and Sean. We've also got an interview with Clinton Griffiths up on the website as well and on our YouTube channel. But we will, over the next few months, be posting all the different pieces, the really cool stuff, the prototypes, down to the stuff that's going to be here in North America in no time at all. So let's take a quick break because it is time. It is Friday. It is time for the RealAg Issues panel. And I've got Jeff Nielsen, farmer out of Alberta, and Kelvin Hepner with me. And who knows, maybe Sean will jump on. We'll see. All right, I'll be back right after this.
What were the issues in your fields this year? Did you do a soil sample? What is your soil sample telling you about some of the nutrient issues that you might be having going into next year? What herbicides did you use? What residues you might be concerned about? What weed issues did you have? What crop residues did you have? How well do you know your fields?
Get the answers to all the questions you have about your pulse crop at the Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com.
Proven Seed is at home in your soil. With the widest seed portfolio in Western Canada, our seed is developed and tested on and for your local acres. Our hybrids and varieties are tested by hundreds of growers, so we know how our seed will perform in your local conditions. Better returns start with seed that belongs where it's planted, and this seed belongs here. Secure your seed today at your local Nutrien Ag Solutions or visit provenseed.ca to learn more.
Have you heard of Vantage Ag? They're a manufacturer and distributor of liquid fertilizers, and they want to work with you. They want to learn more about you and your goals and build a relationship centered around high-value products and a customized approach. For more information on Vantage Ag, call Paul Sinkovich at 778-919-3370 or visit vantage.ag to get started today.
Welcome back to Real Ag Radio here on this Friday, November 17th. I will bring in the issues panel, but first, a word from our sponsors. Are you seeking professional advice for your farm and business? MMP's team of agriculture specialists cover it all, from business planning and tax guidance to financial projections, farm succession, and risk management. Visit mmp.ca to connect with the experts today. All right, let's bring them in. Kelvin Hepner out of Altona, Manitoba, and Jeff Nielsen out of, well, we're just going to say Alberta because you're in a vehicle somewhere, so who knows where you are today, Jeff. Jeff, we'll start with you. How are things where you are?
Pretty busy. We're actually at the Alberta Grains, the first Alberta Grains regional, or first, they've had one regional meeting, my regional meeting here in Strathmore this morning, so some good information being talked about the new combined organization.
Yes, Alberta Grains, everybody. So Alberta Wheat and Alberta Barley officially won, and a new name, new logo, and all that. So we'll be keeping tabs, of course, on what's happening there. Kelvin Hepner, busy, of course. Last week, was it brand new chicks? What's keeping you busy this week?
Oh, taking care of those brand new chicks is one thing. Dealing with all the muck as our snow has all melted here, and we've had some mild temperatures this week, which it's been nice for getting some bonus fall work done. But the yard is a mess, or has been a mess this week. So actually, earlier it froze this last night, so it took the opportunity this morning to actually get a bunch of things done on the yard that I've been putting off all week because I didn't want to deal with all the ruts and making the mess even worse everywhere.
Mud season is not my favorite season.
Yeah, it'd be okay if it just froze and and
Yep.
winter set in.
Yes, I know. Wouldn't it be nice? Okay. It has been a busy week, though, and even though, on some ways stuff didn't happen, we're certainly getting more of the fallout from last week. So, of course, we're going to start with Bill C-234. Calvin suggested before we went on air, we can probably do the whole show on this. We won't. There are other things we're going to talk about, but this is a major, major deal, and we are hearing several sides of this and just how important this is to move forward. Jeff, I'll start with you. You were even on I think it was City TV, did an interview on this. What was your initial reaction when you saw what happened in the Senate last week when Bill C-234 basically got hung up there?
I guess I'm starting to see a lot of, personally, lack of respect for the Senate. It's where they're playing games and seeing politics come into a house that is supposed to be impartial and a house of second sober thought. They are there to review things, see if there's any way that they're not designed to change the structure of any bills that come forward to them. Period, and we know that. And to see this come forward now and see actually key liberal ministers and influencers calling the senators themselves and pushing the matter breaks, I believe, their code of governance. And that's something maybe we need to investigate further to see what the code of governance is. But it's not what we should be seeing as we are expected in our Canadian political system.
Mm-hmm. You almost think really it should be if MPs are calling senators, it should be MPs calling senators and saying, we passed this bill. This is the will of Parliament. But that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing the Liberal caucus or members of Liberal caucus that we're hearing that are potentially, working behind closed doors, keeping this bill hung up. Kelvin, we saw this week some very large names publicly calling for this bill to move forward. 4 premiers, I think we're up to now, have written formal letters asking for this to move forward.
Yeah, we're up to 4 premiers as of yesterday. Nova Scotia's Tim Houston joined Alberta Premier Daniel Smith, Saskatchewan Scott Moe, and Doug Ford in Ontario. All 4 of them have written formal letters and ratcheted up public pressure on the Trudeau government and the Senate to allow passage of C-234. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre also launched a campaign and included some ads this week specifically about the passage of this bill. So we've certainly seen this issue that we've been covering here for weeks go mainstream over the last week, and a lot of mainstream media coverage of it as well. And so yeah, it's set to kind of come to a head again on Tuesday of this next week, September. How is it? It's November. November 21st is the day that the Senate will resume sitting, and so that's when it could potentially come back for a vote. It's not clear, or maybe even not even expected to happen that day, but that's the day the senators will be back in the chamber for the first time since that delay happened last week. And so we're expecting some demonstrations and rallies, and farmers are organizing. There's no farm groups or official political organizations involved, but we are expecting some demonstrations to be taking place early next week, Monday and Tuesday, including on Tuesday on Parliament Hill, as those senators come back for their first sitting since those shenanigans happened in the Senate back on November 9th.
We use the word shenanigans, but it's almost unfair because that implies that, there was some fun here. This is very serious business. But it definitely was, pretty underhanded, and this is not, as Jeff, as you said, good governance. I did want to note, Kelvin, you and I both, of course, we started receiving word yesterday. Some emails trickled in, some text messages about demonstrations happening next week. I'm here in Ottawa. We do know that there won't be any tractors or large equipment allowed in any sort of demonstration. And of course, that comes following the Freedom Convoy of a while ago. But also we have pro-Palestinian rules in place with everything happening in Israel and the Gaza Strip. So we've got some extra rules in place right now for demonstrations downtown. So that's why. But we did hear, of course, that was being called for, and very quickly everyone said, no, please, show up in person. We do hear that there are some MPs' offices that will likely see some demonstrators. Jeff, from your perspective in looking at this, does having premiers of, other colors than the Liberals writing public letters pushing for this to go through, do you think that helps or hinders what the Liberals are up to?
I'm going to be negative on this, and I think this issue has gotten too politicized now. It never should have been. This bill, in a different form, was in the Senate, sitting in the Senate in the spring of 2001. It was ready. There's really little opposition back then to it. We had at the time, Senator Diane Griffin from PEI was the chair of the committee, and she was willing to put her own bill in on the same matter if the private member's bill didn't go through. So you had really strong support, and once again, it was passed by the parliamentarians, including a handful of Liberals. So it passed all the parties, great support by the Bloc, by the Green, by the NDP. There's no issue from those parties at all. And then we come to Bill, round 2 again, Bill 2C-34, and it's just become a lightning rod now. And I'm a little frustrated by some of the, even the conservative politicians, honestly, on this, and the rhetoric they're throwing out there. Like, they're challenging their Liberal members across the floor from and stuff like that. And it should never have been this. This is a simple thing. Farmers were always supposed to be treated fairly when it came to carbon tax. It got on a runaway train here. And, I'm really, really disappointed. Like, the more public response helps, but now you have the Liberals digging themselves, their feet into a rut so deep right now that they will not bend at all. And of course, it doesn't look good on them in the general public. I can't see how. In downtown Toronto, maybe, but they've kind of more or less lost any little support they have, and their pollings is showing that across Canada, especially rural Canada.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we definitely saw that this week, Calvin. We saw some polling figures come out. It does not look good for the Liberals right now.
No, exactly. The overall general polls have been showing that for a while, but there was one of the questions on the Angus Reid survey results that came out this week had to do with environmental management, basically. Which party is best suited to manage the Canadian economy, or basically Canada, going forward on the climate change issue? And the Conservatives, I believe, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, we're at 28%, which isn't really high, but the Liberals and the NDP were both like 13-14%, so much lower. And so that's got to be something that Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault and former Environment Minister Catherine McKenna and even the whole Trudeau legacy has been climate change and climate policy has been a core pillar of that legacy they're hoping to leave. And that's got to be a major blow to them to see those kinds of numbers. Going back to C234, though, one point now that I think is that we need to make is that the gloves are off, and I agree 100% with Jeff that increasing the stakes here and basically putting Stephen Guilbeault's job on the line if this goes through, all of this is probably. I understand the political points that the Conservative politicians and the premiers want to gain on this. I understand the political motivation, but from a farmer's perspective, just hoping that this legislation gets across the finish line, I think it hurts it from a practical perspective because the stakes have been raised so high now that everybody's dug in. And that's why we now are seeing major things happening behind the scenes, senators being reminded daily that they need to vote a certain way on this. And there's a whole bunch of things here where convention is being broken because the gloves are off. That's why we're going to see these demonstrations on Monday and Tuesday next week. And ultimately, from people I talked to, it sounds like the main leverage point that because we talked about this last week, the Liberals and the senators in the Senate who are so supposedly independent have a way of delaying this indefinitely. They can kick the can down the road and keep kicking it down the road to the point where an election is called and this bill doesn't get across the finish line. But the main point of leverage in preventing that from happening is that it's going to require a ton of energy. It's going to be annoying. or they're going to be annoyed. There's going to be a lot of time and oxygen that's going to be required to keep doing that. And so is that going to obstruct other things that the Trudeau government wants to get through in the next max 2 years before the next federal election? If they're wanting to get other things through and use oxygen on other files, are they going to have to at some point relent on blocking this? That I think is the main leverage point, but that's a real long play and certainly isn't going to offer farmers any relief on their grain drying bills this fall and barn heating bills this winter.
I would agree, Calvin, and it is a good point, is, how much of a long game are you willing to play on this, in that realistically there's still meetings that are going to happen. They're still going to have to throw, convention under the bus. And some of this is, to Jeff's point, they could potentially be breaking rules. And that's not just tradition. Those are actual governance rules that we should be looking at as well. So it doesn't look good on the Liberals, for sure. And the longer I think this goes on, the worse it looks. But at the same time, I'd have to agree. I think, the politicking on this has only made it worse. And it's unfortunate that the exemption for home heating oil for the East happened, just that couple weeks ago. That was an off the cuff ad hoc thing that all of a sudden popped up. This has been in the works, like Jeff said, since, that's 2021. This is not, but it's just the timing is really poor, because now this becomes a sticking point, I think, for the Liberals, when perhaps if the home heating oil thing hadn't happened, wouldn't maybe be quite this big of an issue. We have to take a quick break. We've got 2 more segments to fill. So again, it is true, we probably could just talk about this bill, but let's take a quick break and we'll be back with the RealAg Issues panel right after this.
CDC Endure is a new oat line from Alliance Seed. High yielding with excellent disease resistance and the quality end users ask for, all in one great oat variety. CDC Endure provides the high beta-glucan levels to make heart-healthy products like breakfast cereals. For more information on CDC Endure oats, as well as any other products from Alliance Seed, check out allianceseed.com or visit any Alliance Seed authorized retailers.
There's a reason we call it the Corn School. Videos on everything from planter setup, weed control, field trial results, yield strategies, and so much more. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com has the information and advice you need to help you succeed. Brought to you by Pride Seeds and BASF, Corn School episodes are available at cornschool.com, from RealAgriculture.com, or as a podcast from your favorite streaming service. Download the latest podcast today.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on this Friday. I am your host, Lindsay Smith, and this segment is brought to you by Grow Canada. The world needs more of what Canada grows. Join agriculture industry leaders from across the country at Grow Canada in Calgary from November 28th to 30th. Visit growcanadaconference.ca to register now. And I'm going to guess one of our panel members plans to be there. I've got Jeff Nielsen out of Alberta and Kelvin Hepner out of Manitoba on the line. Jeff, will you be at Grow Canada to put you on?
Yes, always fun growing. It's in Calgary this year, so it's always close and handy. It's always a well done conference and a lot of great speakers there.
It's one of my faves. I will not be. I'm pretty sure Sean will be there. But I will not be, but it is one of my favorites as well. It's the one that it switches back and forth. So when it comes to Ottawa, it's lovely. All my Westerners come here.
That's right.
Okay. So let's stick in the political realm for a little bit longer here before we move on to some other things. We did, of course, have Federal Minister Macaulay on last week. Calvin's interview with him went through several different things, but we still, and Jeff, I'll start with you. We still haven't seen a mandate letter for the minister. Do you think we'll see one?
We're coming in, we're at the tail end of November now, and they probably take the Christmas break, probably 3 weeks. Parliament probably rises in 3 weeks. So I doubtful, and then they don't come back to the end of January, first part of February. So these are mandate letters that should be issued within should have a period of time, say 2 weeks after being appointed minister to an office. You should have your mandate letter. It's pretty simple. It gives that person directive. Minister Bebo says she completed her mandate letter. I think there are some misses on the wild horse or the horses for slaughter issue in West Canada. There's I think that didn't quite get completed. But it kind of leaves, and Kelvin in his interview, Minister McCauley made the comment, well, I'm going to try to follow the last letter, try to do a few little things. And he did talk about the Grain Commission, but that was pretty up in the air. There wasn't much said, and we all know there's a lot of farmers' money sitting in the Grain Commission slush fund that shouldn't be there, kind of deal. It needs to be dealt with, and we've had lots of discussion on that. And I'm going to probably make a few people cringe when I make this comment, but watching the memes of President Biden lately and some of his gaffes and slip-ups, I don't think Minister McCauley's too far off. It's just confusing to watch him at times when he double speaks or he says one thing then retracts it, and it's really frustrating as someone that we should expect a lot more out of as a minister.
Kelvin, you conducted that interview. You covered the sustainable ag strategy, the budget cut of 3%. It's not surprising often when we do these interviews that we don't necessarily get, a lot of answers. Usually it takes a bit of time. But this not having a mandate letter, exactly that. We don't know where we're at with the Grain Act review. We don't know where we're at with the Grain Commission. We don't know if the sustainable ag strategy is even, is that a priority? Kelvin, same question to you. I mean, will we see a mandate letter? Do we just go off the last one?
I think they're going to just go off the last one, at least to build on what Jeff said. The National Post had an article out this week where they actually had inquired with the Prime Minister's office about mandate letters, as there were 2 new mandate letters for new ministers actually published this week. The Minister of Sport and one other Minister of Citizen Services, received their mandate letters this week. But the rest, the Trudeau government, his press secretary said that ministers are expected to continue to work and deliver on the priorities listed in the letters from 2021, which that's the last letter that former Ag Minister Marie-Claude Bibeau received. And when she was shuffled out of the role into National Revenue and Macaulay was brought back as Ag Minister back in August, the message, like Jeff said, from Minister Bibeau's office was, well, it was time for her to move on because we had finished the mandate letter. So yeah, it raises a lot of questions, and certainly those mandate letters provide clarity to industry and to stakeholders and Canadians as a whole as to what the priorities are for the minister. And right now, as has already been referenced to, Minister McCauley often isn't a clear communicator, and so it's sometimes difficult to figure out where the government and where the department and where the Minister of Agriculture stands on certain topics right now.
I mean, obviously we are hyper-focused on agriculture and that mandate letter, but you're right. We've only seen a handful, and everyone else is just supposed to go on what was before. But I mean, for this industry, we often are looking at transport and export and all these other ministries, environment as well. To not have shifted significantly on any of those just seems strange to me. And it does make me wonder, should there be, to Jeff's point, should we have more structure around when these come out and the fact that they're made public? Maybe that's, I think it's an expectation, but perhaps it needs to be laid out more than that. I guess we'll see. Now, we are headed into, it is November. It is my second least favorite time of the year, February being the other. Kelvin, a very stressful time. We're hearing this across Canada as well as the US. We've got highly pathogenic avian influenza. We've got some hotspots that we need to worry about.
Yeah, we thought this had quieted down, but it has definitely ramped up, especially in BC here over the last couple of weeks. I was just going through the numbers here. I think about a dozen new cases again in commercial poultry flocks over the last 7 days in British Columbia. Alberta has a bunch of cases. Saskatchewan has some. We actually have one. Our first one here in Manitoba in about a year is just over 10 miles away from where I'm located right now. So that's a little close for comfort. Quebec had their first case in a long time this week as well in a commercial poultry flock. That was just 2 days ago. So, and then U.S. states just across the border in Minnesota, there are cases of some really large operations that have been affected. And so, this avian influenza story is we're not yet till the final chapter. And wonder whether a development of a vaccine is really where we're headed with this, and whether this is something that we're just going to have to live with and that we're going to vaccinate against and it's going to become endemic. I'm not sure, but I certainly hope not. But right now, these cases, new cases popping up on the CFIA's website every week or every day, and that's certainly our hearts go out to the producers on the ground affected by it, because each one of those scenarios is a very difficult situation.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And this is, of course, one of those ones that, being highly pathogenic, it has an incredibly high mortality. And of course, part of containing it also means that many more birds end up being euthanized. And we've certainly seen the fallout over the past couple of years in the food chain, right? I mean, this is a value chain that, while chicken is amazingly efficient on getting from, chick to the grocery store or laying eggs and these sorts of things, losing that many in Canada as well as in the US, especially at the same time, really detrimental. And Kelvin, this is also an integrated system. As much as we're different countries, and we have supply management here and they don't in the US, a lot of the genetics come up from the States. So from the perspective of the value chain, how big of an impact are we seeing so far on the chicken and egg side?
I think we're seeing the system flex right now. It's not breaking by any means. It's just flexing, and in that sense, we see flocks being kept longer in production, longer than they would have otherwise, sometimes longer than ideal. You're seeing, there's here in in Canada, we're seeing some provinces that will probably ramp up their production to make up for shortfalls in provinces where flocks, especially on the breeder side of things, are going down. So far, I don't think it's going to have a major impact. I don't think the U.S. Thanksgiving will be substantially affected next week. There's been a fair bit of talk about turkey prices being down this year versus last year because of avian influenza not being a factor. I don't think those media reports are quite up with the times in terms of what's happened over the last couple of weeks here, but I don't know whether this is reaching the level where consumers are going to notice, partly because the industry has dealt with this now a couple times, especially over the last couple of years. So it's we're almost building in some of the buffers, almost in anticipation that this happens at this time of year, which hopefully that's not something that happens in the long term. But I don't think we're going to see substantially rising at this point. It depends how far this goes. It's impossible to predict. But I right now I'd say the system is flexing, and there's adjustments being made in terms of the supply chains. But I don't know that it's really a major impact right through to the grocery store price type of thing at this point.
This is one of those worst case practice makes perfect scenario. This is the one we don't want. We don't want to have to do this very often, but good to know, of course, that we have learned some lessons and the value chain is adapting. Okay, let's leave it there for now. We got one more segment here with the RealAg Issues panel. I'm talking with Jeff Nielsen and Kelvin Hepner. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with our last segment right after this.
Canola is more than just a pretty face in the prairie landscape. It's a big business, both here and around the world, that requires you to be informed and up to date on everything it takes to grow a successful crop. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com has an expert library of video resources covering markets, agronomy, and more to help you grow a healthy and profitable canola crop. Visit canolaschool.com today. Brought to you by BASF Canada and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
What's next for your fields? At Pioneer, delivering industry-leading genetics drives everything we do. From the scientists in the lab to our local teams with boots on the ground, we are determined to get there first. Developing top-performing products, proven in more growing conditions than ever before. Pioneer. What's next happens here. Visit pioneer.com/Canada to learn more.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on this Friday, and this segment is brought to you by Farmer's Edge. Elevate your farm's soil health and profitability with Farmer's Edge. Our advanced fertility services leverage cutting-edge technology for precise soil analysis and dynamic input applications with variable rate services. Visit farmersedge.ca/farmers today. All right. I am your host, Lindsay Smith. It has been a wonderful week hosting all week. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you all for joining me. So let's wrap it up. We've got one more segment with our issues panel. We've got Jeff Nielsen, Kelvin Hepner. Jeff, I'll start with you. We had an announcement this week. We did get the dollar figure from SCAP, so the Sustainable Canadian Agriculture Partnership. They want us to call it Sustainable CAP, but I'm not. It's SCAP. We got the number for the canola cluster, science cluster, 9 million. Your thoughts? Is it enough? What do you think?
I think when we're looking at research, it's always great to have investment from the government research, but we've known for a good many years the cutbacks that they are imposing on their own researchers. And that I sit on the board of Western Gradients Research Foundation, and the applications we get more and more from the federal research, that we want that. We need public research. We need to have that input into our markets, or not into our markets, but our varietal development and stuff like that. So, we're seeing it for our part. We're getting a lot more requests because the government is cutting back their fund to their own people. So it's great to see it. That's awesome. Definitely not what it should have been, but it helps.
Kelvin, you had an interesting conversation on Twitter this week with Francois Tardif from the University of Guelph, who ran the numbers to look at just what this 9 million means in the grand scheme of the announcements over the last 10 years. And we also were reminiscing that in 2013, you and I were at the announcement of essentially this same kind of funding. It was GF2 then, Growing Forward 2. But it was 15 million in 2013, Kelvin.
Yeah, 15 million.
So, yeah,
15,
go ahead.
15 million for the Growing Forward framework back in 2013. Minister Ritz announced it at Glenlee, Manitoba, south of Winnipeg. And then it was in 2018 that Minister McCauley announced around $12 million. So it was a $3 million cut then for the canola research cluster. And then, and that was also at Glenlee. And then this week, Minister McCauley was at Glenlee again, announcing this $9 million. And going with the inflation adjusted numbers here, that 15 million 10 years ago would be worth over 19 million today. And you adjust because of inflation, $9 million invested, today is the equivalent of $7 million back in 2013. So there's a $12 million shortfall if we're comparing the 2013 government investment in the canola research cluster versus the 2023 government investment here. So, yeah, we're seeing, of course, inflation is making all government spending not go as far, all spending of all types not go as far. And so it's unfortunate, and certainly the canola industry groups, canola growers, canola council are not going to publicly complain about this. They're still thankful for this funding, but we are seeing an overall definite decrease in government investment in research in our industry that has time and time again shown to have a pretty good return on investment.
Incredible return. And so,
I like how sorry if I could jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, and some of the messaging I saw was they're talking about the sustainable fuel that oil seeds can provide and stuff like that. So we've, from 2013 to 2023, we've seen, just probably last 2 or 3 years, the sustainable fuels topic be more highlighted, and we're seeing more value that we can create from oil seeds here in Canada.
There's also, to take that further, sorry, Lindsay, there's also more strings attached to this funding than ever before, or more hoops to jump through to access it, because the government has this mandate of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and basically emissions accounting that runs parallel to all the financial accounting. So this was one of the issues with the new ag policy framework and these research funding applications, all the criteria, and you had to have certain percentages of your research investment going towards reducing emissions or practices that reduce emissions. And so that's where, even $9 million versus 10 years ago, it's also harder to get and more directed. There's more strings attached from the government side of things in terms of where you can use it.
So, and we did, it's we did see the provinces, of course, are going to kick in some of their money as well. And that often happens, right? We see matching and leveraging of these dollars and partnering on things. And to your point, Jeff, exactly that. We want collaboration. We want people to work together, but a lot of researchers and organizations have to just to put the money together to actually do the research that really needs to get done. And I know that, adjusting for inflation, especially after the last 18 months seems, perhaps somewhat unfair. But I think when you look at the number of, that 9 million really being more like 7 million 10 years ago, like that I think is a very realistic number. I think it's a very fair assessment as to where this government deems it should be spending its money. Because I will note this week, everybody, that there was 12 million announced for an agricultural methane reduction challenge. So that's going to be split between a whole bunch of people as prizes for bringing technology forward, which super cool. But did you hear the number, guys? It's $12 million for this challenge. And then there was also just over 9 million going into a living lab project in Manitoba. So when I think about this, the scale and the scope of the canola industry and the potential there, you're right. 9 million. I mean, it's nothing to sneeze at, and it's welcome. But it's not like there isn't other money that's being spent. So, definitely some perspective there on some of those numbers. That does bring up the second part that does relate to our earlier conversation on Macaulay and on the mandate letters. Calvin did bring up, is the expectation that Ag Canada is going to have to cut 3% of its budget? Jeff, where do you think that would come from? Can they cut 3% and not impact what Ag Canada does?
That's that's the $1 million question, literally. We saw the what we needed for the livestock sector for the drought this summer. It was a battle. And it went to the PMO's office before monies were released, and it wasn't really a true monies that did get sent out or issued weren't what the provincial governments and the government of Canada talked about in the first place. So you're seeing cutbacks happening already. You look at yes, we have the latest Growing Forward program, SCAP, in place for the next 3 years. Can they cut anything more out of that? Are we going to see cutbacks in what we can do with our agri-invest, agri-stability, crop insurance? It's where is the cuts? You're a good point. Are they going to cut back on more on the research? Are the researchers going to be more reliant on third-party funding and stuff like that? Yeah, it's going to be a wait and see.
Mm-hmm. Calvin, any guesses or any indications, I guess? Have you heard anything, rumors, hints, and allegations? I think that's an album.
I haven't heard any specifics. Macaulay wouldn't divulge any of that, but he did say that they're working on it. He said they also didn't want to have any programs affected. I'm not sure if he meant business risk management programs. 3% doesn't sound like much overall in terms of a haircut, but you add in an inflation again, and really it's probably more like a 7% cut in real terms in terms of how far the dollars will go 1 year versus the next. And so, I think the government's certainly on climate change and greenhouse gas emissions, that's a priority for this government, so they probably won't reduce any spending in that area. And then business risk management is something that they seem to still think is pretty important, and so I doubt cuts will happen there. So, that leaves some of the research and other extension type stuff that, not much extension, but you got your breeding and different types of programs like that, and that's not something farmers want to see either, but I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up falling more on that side of things.
Yeah, I could definitely see where, potentially it ends up with, on the people side, right? So salaries often is an area, it's a line item that often gets looked at as, who can retire or who's going to retire. But in some ways I almost, and this is, just thinking this through, I almost think like you're almost better off cutting certain things entirely out than just starving programs, because then they just become ineffective, right? So as controversial as sometimes it is, and certainly there have been examples in the past where certain programs just get cut
PFRA
completely. But PFRA is one of them. I'm thinking, Tom Wolfe, really? If we think back years ago, his program, the spray research that he did was all through Ag Canada. And so cutting out things like that, it hurts, but at least, you can keep other things intact. And so, yeah, I don't know which one is the better way to do it, but certainly nobody likes having to try and achieve things on a shoestring budget and just failing. So are we better off just, hard cuts and then just sort of everybody trying to save? I guess we'll see where that ends up, and we'll keep you posted on what we hear or if we hear anything. I did want to quickly touch on, though, that the business risk management side, Jeff, it's a good point you bring up that realistically, the money that was asked for was not necessarily met. This is also, it seems to me, we are going to that well more often in recent years. I feel like this is the research that we need to be doing so that we're not always dipping into all of our business risk management, something like agri-recovery. Do you think we need to go back and redesign these programs?
I think that's been a dream for a lot of us for a good period of time. They keep on. Oh, good gosh. Yes, that's been, I think, something on the table for a long time. They keep on saying, well, we're looking at changes, but we can't really do anything right now. And we have such a collection of farm groups that are supportive of been working together. That I'm trying to think of some of the acronyms right now. I can't think of them, but we've united as far as farm groups across Canada on business risk management program, trying to get things like agri-recovery to be more responsive. Agri-stability is one of those ones that just might work for one sector but doesn't work for all sectors, and it just some pushback even between the provinces trying to get changes needed. But then, of course, there's the funding component, and you get limited funding that you can apply across the whole spectrum of BRM. So, yeah, it could be a lost cause by now, honestly. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we're just at the beginning, really, of SCAP. It's probably one of those conversations, I don't know, feels like
I guess when you look at it, you look at the U.S. Farm Bill, how they're not looking at developing a new Farm Bill, and they're going off of, help me, Kevin, their current Farm Bill is several years old. They keep on extending it.
Yeah, extensions.
And they need to probably get the new one done by spring before the election cycle starts for their presidential election, or else they're hooped there too. So it's not just our problem here in Canada. The U.S. faces the same issues.
I think our timeline might be just a little bit longer, right, Kelvin? We've got 4 or 5 years, maybe, of these programs.
Yeah, we have 5 years, but and there's other factors as well. The Farm Bill affects much more than just agriculture or specific programming like here in Canada. But it's a similar process. And sure, right now it's 5 years away or 4.5 years from the next framework being established. But let's talk about it now already, rather than just wait until the last minute and say, oh, it's too late to change anything. Let's just continue it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. We've got to end it there. We are out of time. Gentlemen, this was so much fun. We covered a lot. I'm quite proud of us. We only had 3 segments. We did quite well. Jeff, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Well, thanks. Just put a quick plug in there. If you're getting olds, come golf at Aurora Golf Olds.
Love it. All right.
To put it in there.
Yeah, you have to. And Calvin, I hope the mud freezes.
Yes, I'm looking forward to winter today. So yeah,
just today
feels
though.
Weird,
all right.
Yeah, good show. Exactly. Thanks, Jeff, for joining us.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. And of course, if you've got any feedback, you can zip me an email, lsmith@realagriculture.com, or find us across social media at RealAgriculture. Leave us a message there. We'll get back to you. And your regular host, Sean Haney, back in the driver's seat on Monday. So have a great weekend. Cheers, everybody.